Good morning, nation. John here. I think his thing's recording, son. I appreciate everybody being here this morning. I appreciate all the comments that came in yesterday. People were like, I've been here since 2,000 subscribers, 5,000 subscribers. I know. I remember the screen names, and I appreciate y'all being here. If you're brand new, maybe consider subscribing. Actually had one person leave a comment yesterday saying, you should have 200,000 subs by now. You're being, suppressed or whatever. Probably. But here's the thing. And I replied to that person, I'm already incredibly blessed. I probably have more subscribers right now than I even deserve. So I just appreciate the folks that are here each and every day. So this morning, we're talking about prepping, the truth about doomsday prepping. And I'm going to give you my opinion. This is my perspective because there are some misconceptions and things in the community. And we're going to go over that along with a list of 10 things that you can absolutely do either free of charge or very, very cheaply in order to prep. Because one of the misconceptions, spoiler alert, they tell me I got to wait a second on that. One of the big misconceptions is it's very expensive. So we're going to get into all that stuff. So, from my perspective, prepping is easy. Now, I don't mean that it's easy as in, you hit it for 30 minutes and you're done for the day. Not that kind of easy. What I'm talking about here is there's not a huge learning curve. Okay, so for prepping, in my situation, it's more of deciding you're going to prep, staying committed to prepping. That's the toughest part. Being able to wake up each and every day, to think like a prepper, to kind of change that mindset and to start doing some things to make sure that you're prepared that you weren't necessarily doing before. What I mean by the learning curve is Mylar bags, for example, and I'll give you a couple. Some people will hear Mylar bags and they think that it's this drawn out process and it sounds space age and they're intimidated by it. And you can't be afraid to make mistakes. But I mean, Mylaring, you learn it in 15 minutes. You may waste a bag or two, but after that, you're well on your way. Canning, you should have seen the first time we tried to start canning. It wasn't no good. Um, Dehydrating. The first time I ever tried to dehydrate beef jerky, we're gonna, being the people we are, we're gonna test it out on the dogs. Here, y'all try it before we try it. And I set it in the floor in front of my dogs, and they typically eat anything. One of them eats their own crap. And they're looking at this beef jerky and looking at me like, nah, son, something's done went wrong. We're not eating that. So trial and error is going to get you to where you need to be as a prepper, but it's not necessarily hard. Now, there are things that are more advanced that do take a while to learn, but the concept of prepping, the basics of prepping, for me, it's not hard. It's just that commitment and that time that's invested. And a lot of people have invested insane amounts of money. Again, it can get out of control, it can get expensive, but it doesn't have to be. So part of it, I think, is understanding why it's important to prep. Because some people don't get that. And if you don't get the importance of why why is it important to prep? If you don't get that, you're probably not going to stick with it. Okay. So the importance of prepping is just this concept really quickly, in my opinion. The government is no longer taking care of you. This hand is no longer feeding you. Okay. You're taking care of yourself. You're taking care of your family. Your own hands at some point have to become the hands that are feeding you and your family. That's why it's important, because this hand may run out of food. This hand may experience war or martial law or something catastrophic like the pandemic, and there may not be enough to go around anymore. Oh my God, what are we going to do? We just had a hurricane. Well, you're going to take care of yourself. It's that sort of mindset. Um, and I'll level with y'all. Sometimes, especially early on, self-doubt begins to creep in. There were a couple of times when not when I first started, but probably within the first year, where I would walk out back or walk, open the pantry, and I would be like, Do I really need to be stacking all this? I mean, I understand the concept, but do we really need all this? You know, am I just a hoarder in denial, so to speak? So that kind of self-doubt will creep in, but it's one of the hard parts is getting past the self-doubt and convincing yourself, no, you're doing the right thing. Keep going with it, okay? Organization and storage, very hard. This is a huge learning curve, at least to my experience, because as you're stacking stuff, it gets away from you quickly. And if you're not a very organized person, you end up having to pull stuff down, go through dates a lot. Sometimes you forget what you have in the back of a shelf or something like that. So teach their own on that. But I don't know. Some people stop there. I'm trying to think of a way to word it. Some people stop there. You know, they're good with prepping, just stacking stuff for 72 hours or a week or 2 weeks, and they're good. They're golden. Some people get into the full-blown homesteading. There are different ways to do it. Other people at some point start to seek the truth. And that is a rabbit hole. Again, spoiler alert. That is a rabbit hole that will suck you in, because what you realize is, again, to my experience, my perspective, you begin to realize that you're being lied to. You're being lied to by 3-letter agencies. You're being lied to by your own government. You're being lied to by mainstream and legacy media and all this stuff. And what that does is it kind of, for me, two things. It reinforces that you're prepping and you're doing the right thing. You know, yeah, we should be stacking stuff because we're being lied to across the board. Some really shady stuff going on. But it almost becomes a borderline obsession with, okay, if we're being lied to about all of this, what's the truth? How is the truth going to affect me as a prepper? Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they're just being shady and they're lying and they've got their own motives for doing it, right? Other times they're lying and something potentially is getting ready to kick off. Like someone left a comment during the live stream with McBean and they said that they began to wake up right before it was a pandemic and they realized, and McBean touched on it actually. He said he realized before it was a pandemic, this thing has all the indicators, all the indications that it's going to be a pandemic. So he started prepping accordingly. So you do need to be informed, but how far you take it is completely up to you. Some people stay on that path of information nonstop. Other people just have zero interest in it, and it's all about like the homesteading and stuff. Now, getting into the cost of prepping. One of the biggest misconceptions, and I really don't like to hear people talk about it. I mean, they're on their own channel, they can talk about whatever. But every time I hear somebody talking about how expensive it is to prep, I'm like, I'm flinching up, because what they're doing is I don't think they're meaning to do it, but they're scaring people off. You know, newer people that are kind of peeking in, and that's the first video they see on prepping. They're like, well, I can't really afford a lot of money. I'm out of here. That sort of thing. It doesn't have to be expensive when you get right down to it. Now, some things are worth the investment. I named off, the system, the canning system, and all the jars and flats and stuff. That's worth the investment. Dehydrator's worth the investment. Vacuum sealer, Mylar bags. Some things are worth the investment. A good weapon of peace or two. Some things are just monumental wastes of money, straight up. And you're going to see all kinds of that floating around. So what I did is I sat down and I made a list of 10 things that you can literally do to improve your situation as a prepper. All 10 things are either very, very inexpensive or absolutely free. Okay. Number one, we were talking about it during the last live stream. You can exercise. Seriously. Now again, you can approach this two different ways. You can go out, you can buy a bunch of gym equipment or a gym membership and pay money and get all the fancy clothes, get you a new pair of whatever, Nikes or whatever. Or you can just decide, hey, I'm going to exercise on my own. I'm going to start walking, Maybe I'm going to jog, whatever you're capable of doing. And you can start to eat right. You can change your eating habits. Sometimes people, oh my God, John, you've lost weight. Are you okay? And I'm like, yes, this is a huge compliment. Actually, thank you for noticing, because I went to a gluten-free diet. I've been doing this for several weeks. First week and a half was a you-know-what. Because a lot of stuff that I actually like to eat, I'm not eating anymore. But I've noticed that not only have I dropped weight, I feel a lot better. And it was just me. Look, I'm going to level with y'all. I've already told McBean it was me waking up one day. I took a shower. I'm half dressed. I don't have a shirt on yet. And I look in the mirror and I said, what am I doing? I'm destroying my body. I'm sitting here talking about civil war, the possibility of a national divorce or martial law. What am I going to be able to do? I'm not in shape. So I decided to start eating better, and I can tell the difference. Number 2, gather and secure important documents. This is something most preppers, maybe your intermediate preppers on up, but a lot of preppers don't do this. They don't have a backup copy of all the important phone numbers, family information. All the documents are not in one place, and they're not secured in a safe or something like this. This can be important information that you found online, secured onto a few flash drives or something, and maybe put in a Faraday bag. Whatever the case may be, you want this stuff in one place so you can grab it and go, just in case the need would arise. And that's something that costs nothing. You already have the phone numbers. You already have the important documents, but they're probably strewn all over the place. If I'm being honest, ours used to be. Number 3, you can vet neighbors, coworkers, etc., even your friends. Maybe you don't have like a deep relationship with a friend. You've been friend for a couple of years or something. You can vet people. This does not look. I know some of y'all Beaverines are going to take it a little too far. This does not mean you got the swinging light overhead and you're like, step out of my office. I got some questions. No, this can be through casual conversation. This costs nothing. This is you chatting with your neighbor. This is you deliberately bringing up certain things, broaching, I think is what it's called, certain topics. Man, Biden and Harris, they're running again. What do you think about that? Do you think the world's crazy right now, or do you think they're just two golden horse candidates because they've done so much for our nation? Just bringing up something like that, your neighbors are going to let you know where they stand 9 times out of 10. And you can kind of sway the conversation over to other things. They can say, oh, no, they've wrecked everything. Inflation's horrible. They might slip up. They say, we're buying extra stuff up, and that can open up a very important friendship between you and a neighbor, whomever. Number 4, learn to bargain shop. Being cheap is a skill, son. I know, because my wife tells me this all the time. She is really, really, really good with bargain shopping, looking for certain percentage off coupons. She signed us up for, I think it's called BJ's Wholesale or something like that. She orders from there, but only when they are running a super special. She buys in bulk, this sort of thing. We go around to different stores and shop, and we're almost never paying full price for stuff. Some people are really, really good at this. And this can actually, not only is it costing you nothing, it's actually saving you money in terms of the prepping. Learn to bargain shop, okay? Number 5, become forward thinking. This is free to do. Again, I was just touching on this a while ago. You stay connected to the news. All right, this does not mean you obsess over the news. This does not mean you're plugged in 24/7 to the point where you always have anxiety. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying be informed, okay? I was just telling Patreon yesterday, got all the stuff going on. Don Lemon got fired. Tucker got fired. Carlson over on Fox. What is going on? Well, what's really going on is while this was taking place, Joe Biden submitted some very important stuff to Congress, and it has to do with war powers. He's trying to give himself war powers, a little more, and he brought Sudan up as the reason for it. So that's being informed. That's understanding, hey, something may be getting ready to kick off there. How's that going to influence me here in the United States? Is that just going to drive up gas prices? Is this going to cause shortages? You be as informed as possible, and then you're forward thinking. How's this going to impact me 3 months from now? And you prep accordingly. Okay. Number 6, locate hiding spots and a bug out location. So some of you are bugging out. I know because you tell me in the chat, and that's cool. If you're going to bug out, locate a couple of spots, make sure they're locked down, go over and visit them. Make sure the weeds are cleared off, or make sure you've got stuff in place, whatever needs to happen, catches are buried. If you're not bugging out, it costs no money to go around your home and look for nooks and crannies, extremely good hiding spots in case there was a search and seizure during a martial law or something like that. That way, when you hear that knock on the door, you're not scrambling around trying to find a place to hide something. Go ahead and identify it now. Again, cost you nothing. Number 7, practice emergency plans with your family. It's free. Run it through a couple of times or once a month. We try to do it once a month. Hey, kids, if this fire alarm goes off, what happens? This sort of thing. Hey, kids, if we tell you we have to leave in 15 minutes, what does it look like for you? What bags are you grabbing? Who's responsible for what? This whole 9 yards. Who's packing what in the vehicle, so to speak? Run through the emergency plans. That's going to look different if you live in Tornado Alley. That's going to look different if you live in a coastal region. That's going to look different if you believe a civil war is getting ready to break out. Whatever you happen to believe, run it through with your family or yourself if you live by yourself, okay? Number 8, and somebody suggested this the other morning, and it's excellent. We used to do it. My son finally caught us, and he knows how to go and throw the breaker back now. Yeah, we got caught. Kill the grid for the weekend. Again, we used to do it. It's excellent. I started to do it. Eventually, my wife caught me, and I explained to her what's going on. She's like, well, maybe let me know ahead of time so I can sell some work emails back and forth. Then we started doing it. My son got wise. He's like, why is this happening every 4 or 5 weeks just during the weekend? Happens Friday afternoon till Monday morning. This is weird. But if you kill the grid for an entire weekend, pay attention to the people in your family that have no idea. They have no idea what just happened. They think the electricity's gone. Some people have said in chat they cut the water. I didn't actually do that. We just cut the electric grid. The internet's gone, this sort of thing. How do your kids react? Are they sitting there for 2 hours trying to reconnect to the internet? Or do they kind of meander off and grab a board game or something creative? All right. It'll let you know where you stand as a prepper because mistakes will always be made. You'll run short on things. For us, it's usually paper products and stuff like that. But we're getting better about that. But it'll let you know where your family stands as well. All right. So kill the grid for a weekend. Number 9, and I'm admittedly not very good at this. Learn to forage. It's absolutely free. I got no real excuse other than I don't want to be attacked by a bear out here in the woods. I can identify certain things like wild onions. Berries are pretty obvious. I mean, there's certain things that grow that I'm going to be able to spot easily, and I'm going to say, that's edible. Acorns would be another example. But there are a lot of other things that grow out there in them hills that I don't know, whether or not it's edible. So learn to forage. All that information is available online. Maybe you know somebody that already does it. Just make sure you know for a fact it's edible before you start eating mushrooms and stuff like that, okay? Number 10. So we often talk about prepper books here in the prepping community, and personally, I think they're a good investment. If you have an Ollie's nearby, they got the deal, son. Go in there. You can get the preparedness manuals. They're not hardcover or soft cover. They kind of got that gloss. I don't know how to explain it. That glossy kind of waterproof cover. But anyway, $8. These are $30 books. All day long, they got them for $8. You know, grid down situation, EMP, they've got tornado, they've got all this stuff. How to survive nuke strikes. They've got shooter's Bibles, which are, for gun owners and things like this, camping manuals. So I do think it's a good idea if you can afford it to stack some of these. However, because this list is absolutely free or very, very cheap, they also have them at your local library. If you really don't have $8 and you're super interested in learning, for example, how to survive an EMP, go to your library. There are books on EMPs and how to survive, and also what the plan is should there be an EMP. You can go to, I don't like them, but you can go to FEMA's website and they have their plans laid out. If there's an EMP, this is what's going to happen. If there's a zombie apocalypse, yes, they have one for the zombie apocalypse. Here's a list of what's going to happen. So you know how FEMA's going to react and you can prep accordingly. Okay. So anyway, honorable mention, because it's getting warm outside, yard sales. Learn to hawk on these yard sales with them hawk eyes. Look at them and make it fun. Now, I get wrapped up, man. I get into yard sales. I'm looking for especially old retro games. Used to be a great place to find them, but I digress. The point is, as a prepper, you can find fishing rods. You can find hand tools. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you can find knives and things like that. You might find books. Just different things that you can find. Cast iron. I've seen a lot of cast iron here locally. And then learn to barter. They want $10 for this cast iron skillet. Great deal, by the way. Barter. See if you can get it for a little bit less. You're having fun at a yard sale and you're getting something you want, but you're also approaching it like a prepper. That sort of thing. How make a day of it. My wife certainly does. Make a day of it. Go out and see how much prepping gear, just prepping gear, you can lock down at your local yard sales, swap meets, whatever. Anyway, folks, enough rambling this morning. This has been John with Prepper Nation. Let me know in the comments, because there are plenty of other things you can do for free or on the super cheap. And hopefully this list will help somebody out there. If not, the coffee was good. Y'all take care and God bless.